Hi, in this video I will explain all about the patterns, which is a main feature of the website. For this I will start with a very short test, but I also want to change the patterns that we are collecting, right? So for slow patterns I want to collect everything just for the sake of this tutorial. Also in the mistyped, I will collect everything. And let's do one test in which I will purposely make mistakes in. Let's make a mistake here. Let's make a mistake there. Let's make a mistake here. Maybe a mistake in a space, right? And yeah, whatever. Okay. Yeah, I will always get new records on stuff because I keep clearing my personal records for testing. So let's see what kind of patterns we have collected. On the left side, on the mistype patterns, this is what I consider to be a word, right? Maybe, yeah. So you see here we are collecting words. So the word that was collected is small. And the reason we have a \b in the beginning and the end, because that means a word boundary, meaning that these patterns only fits the word small. It wouldn't fit, for example, the word smaller, even though small is a subset of the word smaller, because at the end here we have a word boundary. Okay, if, for example, the algorithm would have collected this can actually fit the word smaller. So that is a word pattern. Now, a letter pattern, that's very simple. For example, you see here the letter S. That means that the algorithm will try to find the letter S in the next test, for example, like it found here in system. Additionally, we are collecting, so let's maybe up this and have another test because we don't have enough patterns to show examples in everything. Let's make some mistakes, right? Like that. Okay. Yeah, so the next pattern I want to talk about is the bigram. A bigram basically means a combination of two letters. So as you can see here, SA is a bigram that the algorithm has collected, and you can see it right here in the word same, right? SA. Another type of bigram that the algorithm actually picks up is not necessarily two characters in the English alphabet, but it also looks at spaces, right? So, for example, this \b and then G, as I mentioned earlier, \b means word boundary, but it really fits space as well, because a space is a word boundary. In this case, we don't have any examples, although I'm sure that if I move to the 10K and I remove this word repetition, oh, and yeah, and maybe change to long. So somewhere around here, I'm pretty sure, yeah, there we go. Word boundary and then G. Okay. Yeah, so that's another type of bigram that the website considers, which is a word boundary and then a letter. Another one, of course, is a letter and then a word boundary, so E and then a space, like in game message. That's one that's actually very easy to find, much more than, I suppose, a word boundary and then G. That's why it was so difficult to find it, but E at the end of a word is very easy to find. That's why we have many of these here, because it is mentioned right here, right? Another type of pattern is a trigram, which is very similar to bigram, just using 3 characters instead of 2. So, for example, this ME and then a word boundary, but it can also be like, I don't know, like that, like just 3 letters, normal characters, and not necessarily a word boundary. Another type of pattern, which is the last one, is what I call a spacegram. Let's scroll down for a second and remember which patterns we are collecting. So words, letters, trigrams, bigrams, and spacegrams. So a spacegram is a character and then a space and then another character, right? So it's not really a pattern that you would find within a word. Rather, it's something that you would find between two words. So as we can see here, we have, I don't know, like the N and then \s, that means space, and then an M. Like it's hard to find it right here. Like if I try to scan it, it's hard for me to find it. Maybe it's there. Oh, there we go. Satisfaction and then Mesa, N space M, right? So yeah, these are the 5 different patterns that the website, the algorithm collects and then tries to find within words and within tests. And yeah, that's it for the types of patterns. Now, maybe there's something else I want to show you. Yeah, so these are your slow patterns and mistyped patterns, right? And you don't necessarily want to practice both of them at the same time. So of course you can decide to just not collect any mistyped patterns, for example, and you can select which patterns you want to practice. Maybe you just want letters, right? You don't really care about specific bigrams or trigrams and all that. You just want to practice the specific letters that you tend to get wrong. So you can do it like that. Also, you can put maybe collect on both mistyped and slow, but you want to put more weight to the slow pattern, so you can change this slider to only collect 2, for example, right? It wouldn't reduce immediately to 2 just by moving the slider, but once you take another test, then it will remove a lot of the patterns and only keep 2 of them. Okay, so if you look right here, you can see that there's another box, or actually 2 boxes, where you can have patterns in, but it's not filled automatically like these ones. These boxes you need to fill by yourselves, and this is for patterns that you want to either include in the tests or exclude from the tests. So for example, put simply, I don't want to see the letter E, right? I just exclude it, and you won't see the letter E. And if you do suddenly find some word where it does exist, that's probably because you have some sort of randomness, right? I have it on 5% random, and that means there's a 5% chance of a word having the letter E in it. And also we have the include pattern. So for example, if you want to practice double O, we put it right here. And eventually, yeah, we get the test with many double O words. The patterns here in include pattern, where the user selects the patterns, they have a little bit more weight, because if this pattern had exactly the same weight as the 20-something patterns that we see here, then it's kind of unlikely to really see it very much. The assumption is that if a user puts a pattern here, he really wants to practice it. So there's more weight on it, and therefore I think almost all of the words, not all of them, for example, starts now, but many of the words have double O in them. That doesn't mean that these patterns are being ignored. Okay, there's the words here are a combination of these patterns and the user pattern, only that this one has more weight. Okay, now let's say that you know that you want to practice. Let's refresh it and use, just for the sake of demonstration, a medium. And I don't want any random tests, right? I want the patterns to appear. So let's say that you, for example, you know that you are very bad at typing C, V, and B because they are all with the index finger and you keep confusing them. And you know that you want to practice this very often, maybe every day, maybe once a week, but you want to come back to it a lot. So instead of having to put them in here one by one every time, you can actually save this into what I call a profile, right? A custom pattern profile. So let's just call it simply CVB, okay? And now if we clear this and we choose CVB, then it pops out right here. And these patterns actually also include the exclude patterns, right? So you can decide to practice your CVNB, but you don't want to overload the index finger in this session, so you exclude F, G, T, and R, for example. So let's call this profile, I don't know, left index bottom row. What a bad name, huh? Yeah, so I saved it right here, and now you can see I have the two different profiles, the CVB one and the left index bottom row. Now let's assume that we don't like this name, right? Left index bottom row, we want to call it, I don't know, CVB2. So we can create a new profile called CVB2, which is exactly the same as the left index bottom row, and we can delete this one, right? So now we can switch between CVB and CVB2. And if, for example, in CVB2, we now also want to include not in caps lock, the X key and the Z key. So we have these here, but they are not really saved to the profile. So what we need to do is click modify current profile, and now they are saved here. See profile modified, and we can switch back to CVB and CVB2. Yeah, and that's, I think, pretty much it for the patterns. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.